Hi, everybody. My name is Yvette Longenecker. I'm a partner here. This is my parents' farm that they started back in 1978. They started with nothing here, basically. There was a house, a corn crib, a couple old shacks, the sheds and stuff. They built that barn down across the road, and it's an 85 cow stall barn. They built it back in 1978, 79, and they moved in here, started milking cows Good Friday, 1979. From there, we milked there until we had almost 400 cows going through that stall barn. Then we built this new facility up here back in 1996. Am I right, Ben? That was 96. We moved up here to this 600 cow stall barn, and we just continued to grow and grow and grow. 2008, we formed a partnership with, there's 4 cousins and my parents still in this partnership. And we decided that, I guess it was 2008 and then 2009, we actually bought 2 more milking facilities from uncles who were going out of business, who wanted to retire. So in 2008 and 2009, we went from 1 milking facility to 3. The goal always is to shut one of those farms down, move them to the home farm. So finally, back in last year, we started construction on the new facility. And then on Saturday, just this past Saturday, 5 days ago, we moved 500 cows into this barn. So it's been a chaotic week. This barn are new to this facility. We basically uprooted them from their home, their holding area, their parlor, and we brought them here. And it's been taking a lot of work to get them used to this place, getting them used to the parlor. But we're getting there. Every day is getting a little bit better. But now we are milking just shy of 1,300 cows at this home farm. We do have another farm that we're still milking cows at. That's the Clover Ridge farm. We milk about 550 cows there. We also have a methane digester on this farm that Ben here is our resident engineer. He'll be talking to you about the digester back there. We also farm about 3,600 acres of corn and alfalfa mainly. So if you guys want to take a peek in the barn here quick, this is a 900 stall barn here. So right now we only have 4 of the pens full, but we're working pretty quickly and getting all 6 of them full.
Well, good morning. My name's Dean Kohler. I work for Fisher and Thompson, and what Fisher and Thompson is a business that we're based out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we primarily work with dairy farmers. Our business covers North Carolina through Rhode Island, and we employ about 175 people in our business, and we have over 6,000 dairy farms that we work with as customers over the Mid-Atlantic region. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this facility, but also some of the opportunities in the industry within the milking equipment business and some of the support areas of the industry that coincides with what we do and our customers. So we'll make a big circle in here later, but in an effort to not disturb the cows and milking, I'll walk you through the main milking center first, and then we can sneak in there and you can take a look and ask me any questions that you might have. But so as talked about earlier, this parlor was built in 1996. It was originally a double 16 parlor and was designed to milk about 800 cows. As the business grew, we decided recently to modify this, and is now currently a double 24 that has the capability of milking about 1,500 dairy cows in it 3 times a day. The capacity of this is actually built to be expandable so that the family can continue to grow the business here and can eventually probably maximize about 2,500 cows in this facility, milk 3 times a day. So everything that was constructed here within the last year was built with the foresight to not just milk currently what they are in 2024, but give them the ability to grow over the next 10 to 15 years. So it was originally a herringbone parlor. Does anyone know what a herringbone parlor is? A herringbone parlor is where you milk cows from the side, and it's been converted into a parallel parlor. So what that means today is the employees actually milk the cows from behind. It's a little bit safer, and then it actually speeds up the process, so it makes it easier, and we gain some efficiencies in the parlor. There's a third type of milking parlor that the dairy industry uses, and that's called a rotary parlor. And if you go online, it's pretty fun to watch. It's basically a merry-go-round that cows get on, and they go for a ride around the circle and get off. And it's really, it's pretty neat to watch how cows just love to go for a ride, just like you would at a park. So after what the cows get milked in here, what we have over here on the left is it's a milk house. So and basically the milk goes into a little room here. It's a sanitary room, and the milk goes from about 100 degrees temperature down to 34 degrees temperature in a cooling system. So one of the things that is you'll see in that room is there's a lot of sampling that's done in that room. So it's very important that as a producer of food that we're always focused on the quality of the product leaving the farm. So there's a couple things in there. So milk is basically instantly refrigerated and put on these trucks, and that milk is then hauled to, in this case, Land O'Lakes, and they make mostly butter out of this milk from this dairy farm. So, but inside there, they're also pulling samples, and what they're doing with those samples is one of the important things that we like to make sure people know is a critical test before this milk leaves the farm is all the milk is tested to verify that there's no antibiotics in the milk. And so if it were to find antibiotics, that milk would never leave the farm. So I know that's one of the things that we take a lot of pride in ensuring that we're sending an excellent quality product to the plant to get processed. So a little bit about the technologies of milking cows that I guess I'd like to talk about, and what would attract you to want to work in the industry. So within our business, as you can see, they're tankers here. We have a lot of employees in our company and supporting companies that deal with the transportation and the logistics of moving things. And certainly within the whole job market today, I think it's very critical that we move products, whether it's dairy products or the supplies for a farm. There's a lot of opportunities in the transportation and logistics, because if we can't keep product moving, businesses are not functioning. So, that's a very, I would say we probably employ close to 50 employees in our entire company that are somehow focused on the movement of products within our organization to our customers. The other thing that I think is really intriguing about what's changing involving in the milking business, if you like animals and you like data, the business is changing very rapidly as to what information we're able to find out about what's going on this farm. So in two aspects. So this milking system is all connected to a computer, and that computer I actually would have access to remotely from my phone, and I can tell you from my phone, as well as our whole service and support department can see everything pretty much that's going on and functioning within the system. And it's monitoring all of that system to tell us if there's a problem. It will instantly notify us at our dealership and someone at the farm that something's not functioning properly. And there's a lot of support and programming behind the scenes that goes into developing that and installing that system. But there's a lot of IT and technical support that is finding its way on the dairy farms. On the cow level of things, one of the most interesting things we've seen over the last 10 years is the adaptation of monitoring systems for every single animal. So you'll notice if you go back out there and see the ear tags, that there's an orange ear tag on just about every animal on their farm here. And that is basically has the same technology your phones would have that monitor your movements. So the interesting thing that we can tell with those ear tags on cows today is the temperature of every single cow. We actually know how quickly they're moving. And so with that, it can tell us actually exactly how many minutes a day the cow is spending eating where they eat at the feed bunk. They actually, cows have a stomach called a rumen that moves, and we actually can tell how many minutes a day their rumens are functioning properly. So if a cow gets a little bit of an upset stomach, they would know it immediately within 2 hours of that cow developing an upset stomach, and can quickly identify that cow and find out why it is that she may not be feeling well. And the other aspect of it they use is for their reproductive programs here on the dairy farm. So it helps give them a tool to know how to manage their whole reproductive system here. So they combine all that data with inside the milking parlor. This parlor actually, when every cow gets milked, it knows what cow is in what stall, and it captures how much milk each cow is giving each time she comes into the parlor, as well as it takes what is called the conductivity of the milk. And basically that's an indication of the amount of salt in the milk actually. And so we can tell if a cow's health is changing by a change in that conductivity in the milk. And so any change that a cow goes through that's significant will trigger their computer system to let them know here's a cow who's going through some changes, and just alerts them to make sure that someone takes a look at that cow and analyzes them to make sure. Basically, it's all geared around making sure that every cow is happy and healthy here. So it's very important as we get more and more cows together, that we don't lose the ability to make sure that every single cow has the best attention given to her, so that we just have good, happy, healthy cows. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in this door here on the right hand side and just make a little circle, and take a look at the parlor and watch a few cows get milked. And if you have any questions while we're in there, please let me know, and then we'll work our way over in the milk house and back out here quickly. As I mentioned before, this is a double 24. Cows come in from a holding pen. Each group of cows is brought into a holding pen, and then they will walk single file into either side. They get milked, they exit out the front and go back to the freestall barn. These tanks here in front of us, these actually hold water. This is recycled water actually, from the cooling system that cools the milk. So milk, part of what we do is cows drink water, a lot of water. So what we do with that water before we put it out in the barn for them to drink is we actually put it through the plate cooler. And in Pennsylvania, the water is about 55 degrees. So the the water actually goes through the plate cooler in the milk house and takes milk from 100 degrees down to 55 degrees and doesn't use any energy. We're taking the energy out of the water, so basically it doesn't cost any money or use any energy resources to cool the milk down to 55 degrees. That water then is put in these tanks here and is then used to clean the concrete and keep the parlor nice and clean. You hear that bell ringing, that basically cows get used to that sound. They know when they hear that bell, that means it's time for them to enter in the parlor, and they'll start moving into the parlor then. So also, if you're on the dairy farm, you'll notice you hear employees whistle a lot. They associate that sound of whistling. That's also another way, just like you'd whistle to a dog. You whistle to the cows, they know it's time to enter into the parlor. Any questions in here? All right, let's go over to the milk house. All right, so I mentioned the computer system that monitors everything. This is actually the central unit of that computer system. It's got a touch screen just like a phone would, and you can go through this screen and it actually keeps basically an infinite amount of history of everything that's going on in the past and what's happening in the milking system right now. The milk from in that parlor comes into here, goes through filters to take out any impurities, and then this is the cooler that cools it down to 34 degrees and it's fully refrigerated. And then over there is a refrigerator and a sampling system, and that's what pulls the samples of the milk as it's going onto the trailers. And we keep the samples cold in the refrigerator over there to get tested. We do some testing here on the farm, and then some very detailed tests will go on and actually travel to the plant with the milk, and they do a lot of testing at the milk plant before the milk is unloaded and taken into the processing plant. So, well, okay, so my job is I'm in charge of selling all equipment projects for our company, and so I think a little bit of my background. So I did go to Penn State University. I got a degree in ag systems management. So it's basically a technology-based, agricultural technology-based degree from Penn State that really did a good job helping me find passion for something within the industry. You know, I grew up on a dairy farm. You know, I enjoyed doing field work. I enjoyed being around cows, but I really found that the technology on the farm is what I had the most interest in getting involved with, which led me on a career path away from the farm. My family still has a farm that my father and brother are involved with, and yeah, I've kind of going down this path to try to find ways to bring technology to many dairy farms throughout our marketplace. And you know, to me, it's very exciting because, as you all well know, technologies are changing all the time. So it's really something new and exciting to bring to dairy farms all the time. So.
Hi, I'm Dr. Danielle from Dairy Side Veterinary Service. I originally grew up in Williamsburg, so I'm like 5 minutes from the home farm I grew up on. I have now been a veterinarian at Dairy Side for a year and a half. Still love my job every day. So first, I'll kind of get into a little bit of what my everyday looks like as a large animal veterinarian. We'll get into a little bit of reproductive health and fun things like that. And then behind you, you'll see there's fun jars. We'll wrap up with that at the end. If you have any questions, just feel free to shout it out. Let me know. Based on the last group, we run a little bit tight on time here. So if you have questions, please just let me know as we go along. So as far as my day-to-day goes, I usually start every morning with a herd check, meaning I go out to a dairy farm similar to this one, and I'm checking those cows for whether or not they are pregnant, and if they're not pregnant, what structures are on the ovaries to kind of help the farmer get a better game plan of how we're going to go about getting this cow pregnant. Because at the end of the day, dairy cows need to be lactating in order to make the farmer money on a dairy farm. And ideally, to keep producing milk, they need to be having a calf. Hopefully one calf every year. That way they can continue to lactate and be a productive member of the dairy farm. In addition to herd health, which we'll come back to the herd checks, herd health thing as we head into that section of the room. But in addition to herd checks, after that, it's kind of fair game as to whatever calls in the office as to what I get into. Some days I'll get into some surgeries. Our most common surgery is a twisted stomach or displaced abomasum surgery. In dairy cattle, a lot of times it happens just because they're not eating for whatever reason, whether they didn't quite pass their placenta, whether they have pneumonia. They could have a multitude of different reasons why they didn't want to eat. I have here my surgery tray. So as you can see, there's lots of things in here that I use for that surgery. I have a surgery pack that we had sterilized in the office. Has some instruments in there that I need to use, some gauze, some needles. Pretty much anything I need to get that surgery done is in that pack. I have a surgery gown that I wear. There's some sterile sleeves, some sterile gloves in here as well. There's some hobbles to keep everybody safe, because part of my job as a veterinarian, I still have to talk to people, newsflash guys, I still have to talk to people as a veterinarian. So I want to make sure that everyone that I'm working with stays nice and safe. That's part of my job. So there's also some suture here that I utilize for the surgery. There's some lidocaine that we use. A lot of times these cows will stand for the whole surgery and they'll do just fine with just some lidocaine. They want to get a little bit uncooperative during the surgery. Sometimes I have to utilize some sedation just to calm them down a little bit. But most of the time, just some lidocaine and they'll stand the whole surgery. It's pretty straightforward from there. Other times they'll get called out on calvings, or we're heading into the winter season where it's lambing and kidding season. So we'll get into some of those here shortly. But for calving, a lot of times I'll utilize some J-Lube to help lubricate things, keep things nice and slick, to help keep the calves moving along as we need them to. A lot of times I'll utilize my OB chains and the handles to help bring the calf along with some assistance. And then this fun tool, I don't even know if it has a name for it, but you can pass one of these chains through here and utilize this tool to, you can kind of bend it and fold it as you need to, and you can pass it around a leg or around the calf's neck if you need a little bit of extra arm's width to kind of get the chain where you need to go to help get the calf in the correct position. Of course, I use my stethoscope a lot. We see a lot of sick cows, so stethoscope is absolutely a must. I don't have my thermometer here, but that's also a must. I have multiple of those in my car. So if they get left somewhere, we're okay. Going back to the herd check side of things, pretty well that entails me wearing either these Pellas, or I have some waterproof udder techs that I put on. I'll put on a breeding sleeve, hold that down with the hemostat. And a lot of times I can use my hands to kind of check the uterus and the ovaries and see what's on them, but we also utilize ultrasound. Ultrasound is great, especially for the amount of information it can give us. So whenever I go in, I can say the cow is pregnant. If I'm just using my hand, I can say, yes, she's pregnant. I might be able to say if the membranes are a little bit loose or something feels a little bit off. But with the ultrasound, I can go in and say, okay, I see a good heartbeat on that calf. Or I can tell the farmer, hey, the fluid in this around this calf looks a little bit cloudy. Let's watch this cow. There might be a problem that's trying to brew, and kind of keeps the farmer attuned to the fact that there may be something going on with her. So we've got a nice reproductive tract here. We have the vulva, heads down into the vagina. The cervix is right here, leads into the very short uterine body that cattle have. There's 2 uterine horns. Then at the end of the uterine horn, there's ovaries. Now, I think this ovary on this side didn't make it in the whole dissection process, but we have the fun ovary on the left here. And if you see here, this structure that's pretty clear looking right on the edge of the ovary, that is a follicle. So what I'm going to have you guys do is I'll turn the ultrasound on here. Unfortunately, there's not a screen on this ultrasound, but I'll have you guys look through the goggles and I'll scan over top of that follicle so you can see what a follicle looks like on ultrasound. It'll be this little black dot, might have a little bit of cloudiness, white cloudiness in there, but it'll essentially be a little black dot right at the top of your screen. So whoever wants to start can come look into the screen. All right, this will be right at the top. You don't have to put it on, you can just hold the goggles right up to your eyes. See that black dot right at the top? Yeah. Yep, that's the follicle. So whenever I'm scanning the uterus with the ultrasound, that's what I'm looking for. At least one of the structures that I'm looking for. Whoever's next. Right in the middle. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Black structure right in the middle. That's the follicle. Black structure right in the center. Black structure right in the middle of the screen. That's the follicle. So the follicle is what is essentially going to be ovulated off when the cow gets bred. The egg that's released from that follicle is what will get fertilized. So the fact that there's a follicle here means that this pretty big follicle too, this cow is probably coming into heat here shortly. So that's an important structure that we look for. Right in the middle at the top. Mm-hmm. A little cloudy, probably because it got frozen. But, all right, if we have time, I'll let you guys come back and feel around the uterus if you want to with some gloves. But we'll keep things moving. We'll head over to here. I know, it's a very confusing room. So they had asked me when I came here if I could talk a little bit about reproduction. So we talked about kind of the repro tract, how you look for its health, what things look like on the ultrasound. Like I said, the follicle will ovulate off an egg. That egg will become fertilized. One of the veterinarians that's here, Dr. Penn England, he's currently up in Toronto this week, but he is normally here on the farm day in and day out. Dairy side has kind of a relationship with the family and the farm here, so we do come in here for some things, but Dr. England focuses a lot on embryo transfer here. Essentially what that entails is a lot of what we talked about over there, seeing what structures are on the ovaries, getting the cows bred, getting the cows pregnant. For the embryo transfer part of things, they will go into these cows once they are 7 to 8 days pregnant with these embryos. They'll utilize this cup and this filter system and collect those embryos. They'll put them in those straws, and then the straws will get frozen in liquid nitrogen. And the reason that we go about doing some of this, sometimes we have cows that are really hard to get pregnant for whatever reason. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. Maybe the cow's a little bit older, or if there's an animal on the farm that has really, really good genetics and they want to have a lot of those genetics on the farm that they can pass down, embryo transfer is a great way to get more than one calf from that particular cow every year, as opposed to if you would just get that one cow pregnant every year, you would get one, if there happens to be twins, maybe 2 calves a year. So it's a way to get more genetics into a herd faster than just your normal one calf a year pregnancy. Whenever those straws from the embryos get thawed, they'll then utilize this gun and these rods and go ahead and implant those embryos into the uterus. They'll wait a couple of days and then they'll go back in. Hopefully those embryos result in a pregnancy in that animal. Then in another almost 9 months, you'll have a calf on the ground. So in this microscope, we have, making sure they're still here, there's 2 embryos in there. So if you guys want to kind of quick shuffle through, they're going to be really, really tiny on your screen, really small, about that big. But there's 2 of them on the screen, so you know what an embryo looks like. Again, 7 to 8 days old. You will not be able to see it. If you look at the plate, you won't be able to see them with just your naked eye. You have to use a microscope at this stage. So they're super duper tiny. But that's what a calf starts out as, and honestly, that's what all of you looked like whenever you were first starting to grow into who you are now. Everybody was that small. It's not until they get a little bit older do they start looking like a calf or a goat or a lamb. So embryo transfer is one of the things as a veterinarian you can get into. It's more of a specialized field. So there's one of our vets, Dr. Jen, in our practice that does a little bit of embryo transfer. But it's certainly something that some people make as a whole career for themselves. So there's lots of different avenues that you can go into in veterinary medicine, not just what I do every day as a general practitioner. We'll start, I'll head in this corner here where you guys have a good view of everything. So we'll start over with these 3 jars, just because we talked about the embryo and calves are growing and developing. We'll start with this jar. This calf is probably about 40 days old. So that embryo that you saw over there was 6 or 7 days old. If you want to pass the jar around, please don't drop it, but that's what a 40-day-old calf looks like. A lot of times if a cow is going to abort a calf that early, we're not going to find the calf. It's pretty small. You've got to be at the right place at the right time to maybe find it. So, but you can tell from the little tiny embryo, now it actually kind of looks like a calf. It's starting to grow and develop into the animal it's going to be. We'll start passing this jar around next. This calf is probably about 90 days old. So you can see in 50 days' time how quickly that calf is starting to grow. That calf looks like a bull calf from the looks of it. Whenever they're as tiny as that 40-day-old calf, you're not really going to be able to tell super easily what the gender is. Usually you can figure that out with the ultrasound somewhere between 55 and 70 days. We'll leave this jar on the table. This one's a pretty big jar, but this is a goat kid that's probably pretty close to full term by the looks of it. It's got some hair. It's pretty close. But you can tell there's definitely a lot of growth from when it gets to 90 days. Goat kids usually their gestation's about 150 days, thereabouts. So there's definitely a lot of growing in a short amount of time for these guys. Even in the calves, you'll see, I'm sure, a lot of newborn calves around here too. There's a lot of growth that happens in those 9 months. Every once in a great while, so you'll walk around here, you'll see a lot of healthy calves. There's plenty of pregnancies that go on just fine around here. Calves are born, they're normal, they're healthy, they're doing great. Every once in a while, we'll have a calf that's born with what we call a congenital defect, meaning something didn't quite develop quite right while it was growing in the uterus. So this calf, this is a heart from a 12-day-old calf, and it has the congenital defect that we call tetralogy of Fallot. There's essentially, it's a fancy term, there's essentially 4 things that went wrong with the heart in development. So the blood, it wasn't able to get from the heart to be oxygenated into the lungs and then come back into the heart so it could go to the rest of the body. A lot of times, this is a pretty severe congenital defect, and so a lot of times the calves will not live for very long with that kind of a congenital defect. But we do see that every once in a great while. So if you want to take a peek at that jar later, that one's a big one we'll leave up here. Sometimes with sick animals, we'll look at neurologic issues, so we'll have to look at the brain. Sometimes we're testing for rabies, we have to send the brain off. So that's certainly something that we keep an eye on. And then we also look at parasites, sometimes in our ruminants. So these are some roundworms that we found in the pigs. Pretty easily treated. Sometimes they're fun friends to find. So as far as what I see every day, obviously I see a lot of ruminants, a lot of cattle, dairy cattle, beef cattle, some camelids, some alpacas and llamas. I do see some horses as well, some sheep and goats. This is from a horse. These are called gastrophilus. They start out as eggs. Usually they're laid kind of right around the horse's nose, maybe on lower legs. The horse will ingest them, just happens. And then these eggs will go down into the stomach. They'll hatch, and these larvae attach to the stomach. They don't cause any issues in the horse. A lot of times we'll just find them incidentally, meaning the horse died for some other reason, and we went in to try to figure out why it died, and we find these little friends in there along with whatever the horse actually died from. So they're usually a fun little finding if we find them.
So they're not harmful in any way?
Mm-mm. Nope, I believe it would be considered a symbiotic relationship. So the horse doesn't, well, maybe not necessarily symbiotic. I don't know if the horse benefits from it, but the horse isn't harmed from it in any way. So those are there for you guys to look at. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, well, this is hoof trimming. This is one of the essentials of any dairy anymore. Cows walking around on concrete in their own manure all day long. They need their feet taken care of. High concentrated feeds and corn and stuff like that will make their feet grow also. So we need to keep their feet trimmed. So if anybody has any question, just shout them out. This is like your fingernail. That's all I'm trimming. And I'm keeping the cow's foot in balance. And we try to keep it to like if they were walking in the pasture, basically. So she gets trimmed about every 6 months or so. So I want her to walk on this outside wall, and we're going to preserve her heel. We'll just take the pressure off her sole. And I have to leave a little extra here because I'm dealing with brand new floors. On her back feet, I know a lot of guys can't see this, but they tend to grow this outside toe a lot quicker. So I try to preserve the inside toe, the medial toe, as much as I can to balance her foot out. Okay. My son and I usually work together. I'm here on a special thing. But we'll do anywhere between 180 cows a day. We just get rolling. So, and on a farm like this, you almost have to, so we can keep up on this stuff.
Right. Is it usually one farm a day, or I guess it depends on the size of the farm?
If I have quite a few Mennonite guys, I do. Sometimes I can get 2 of them done in a day, because I'll only do maybe 30 or 40. But most of the time, it's just one farm a day. Come on. How did I learn to do this? Well, way back in 1982, before any of you guys were even thought of, I worked on a big dairy in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and basically they taught me how to trim down there.
Do you own your rig?
Yes. Yep.
That's your own
This is Russell's trimming service. I have 2 of these, and I only have 1 employee. That's my son. That's enough. And
Would
that
you
this.
say this is a business that needs, like,
What's that?
would you say this is a business that needs more workers in it?
Yeah. There's only like 3 hoof trimmers in the Morrison's Cove.
And I'd say you probably do fairly well then.
Yeah. We stay very busy.
That's
Yeah.
a career path, huh?
It would be, yeah, it's interesting. I mean,
Something different every day.
yeah. Yep. Now, the rigs that we started with way back then were nowhere near like this. This is fairly new. They took a while to develop this style of hoof trimming shoot. It started out with cow. We would lay them on their side. They'd come in, we lay them over and trim their feet. And every now and then you get a stone. So this is a real good, I mean, this is how their feet grow when they're on concrete. They're putting pressure in here, and you don't want them to put pressure there. They grow their toe way too long. So we just try to get them back to their original shape, or as close to it as we can. Other than limping, this white line, this is the weakest part of this cow's hoof. I don't know, a lot of you guys can see that. But you have this part right here. That's her white line. In the summer months, when we're dealing with heat stress and a lot of moisture, this will get weak. And this will split, let infection in, and before you know it, we have an abscess. It'll let stones in and everything. So that's pretty much it. The other thing was, you hear a lot of people talk about hairy heel warts, which is really a product of freeze-stalls. It's all the combined gases in the cow's stomach. Everything is concentrated, and then we wind up with hairy heel warts. That's what they've come down to, what it is. That's why they run foot baths. And we pretty much, on like a dairy like this, I hardly ever see a wart anymore because they're really good with their foot bath.
That's awesome.
So that's about the biggest thing anymore. The guys that don't get their cows' feet trimmed and you go in to try to, you wind up patching up feet. Then you get ulcers and all kinds of things.
Yeah, makes sense. The whole system.
This system was bought before inflation took over. Let's say that. So this particular rig's about $67,000. What's that? Before inflation hit. So I'm not quite sure. I think they're going for 80, maybe 90. This is an Appleton steel chute built in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So
Did you have to drive out there to go get it?
no, they'll deliver.
Okay. That's nice.
That's nice. We drove out for our first one,
Oh,
but
did you?
yeah, that was fun.
Well, thank you very much.
What is the most dangerous, harmful gas in manure? We're intentionally making methane. We take all the manure from that barn, the one behind you, and it comes up here to this tank. There's 500,000 gallons of manure, most of which is underground, that we heat up to 100 degrees using the heat off of the engine that you hear running over there in that building to intentionally make methane. Now, you know why we make the methane? That's what's making the engine run. We're running that engine that is hooked to a generator off of methane. We're making enough electricity to power almost 90 houses every day. Now, the bad thing is we still have to buy electricity. That's not enough power for us. But we're making that much electricity. So this whole system, that building, the digester, this building, was all constructed in 2006. Any idea what it cost in 2006? Want to take a guess? No, you're not far off. It was 1.1 million in 2006. In today's terms, it's probably $2.5 to $3 million to build the same thing. So we take all that manure, put it in there, make methane, generate electricity. We're generating almost 1 million kilowatt hours a year. We've generated over 15 million kilowatt hours since it was built. And the engine that's in there is running, has 153,000 hours. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The only time it's off is when it breaks, which is usually not a good thing, or when we have to change the oil or do maintenance. But now, put this in perspective, 153,000 hours. Now, if you were in a car that was driving, say, 40 miles an hour, so every hour you go 40 miles, and we've run for 153,000 hours. Anybody can do the math, how many millions of miles that is? Don't worry, I didn't pull out a calculator to figure it out, but I can tell you, it's millions. So this one engine has run millions of miles. Most cars, you get a couple 100,000 out of them and you wore the living daylights out of them, right? So we've been a couple million miles. So when the manure leaves the digester, it comes over here into this building and we separate the liquids and the solids. And we use the solids exactly for beddings. So we're using recycled manure for all our cows to sleep on. And some people say, ooh, that's gross. Why are you doing that? Well, we don't have to buy sawdust. We don't have to buy straw. We don't have to buy other bedding. The other thing is the digester, because it's 100 degrees inside and the manure stays in that tank for approximately 20 days, it kills all the bacteria, the pathogens, the bad stuff in the manure, the stuff that, makes you want to stay away from manure. And it turns it back into the pile that's there is really no different than the feed that the cows are eating. It's just the undigested feed. The bacteria has been killed in it. The pathogens have been killed. The kids, the younger kids, when they were kids, they used to come back here and play in this. They actually had a rope. They would swing off into the pile. They thought it was fun. It doesn't excite me, but they thought it was fun to play in that like they were playing in a sandbox. They'd bring their trucks and tractors and load it up in the dump truck and haul it. They did all kinds of stuff back here. They thought it was fun. So then the manure, once it leaves here, the separated liquids go down there to the manure pits. And we use the manure for fertilizer just like every other farm. So the digester doesn't really change anything other than it takes the methane portion, the volatile fatty acids that will break down the quickest and make the most methane. It takes that portion out of the manure. Otherwise, the manure is pretty much the same as what it came out of the cow. And we use that as fertilizer on all our crops, just like pretty much every other farm that has manure, whatever kind of manure it may be. That was the radiator for the generator. So methane, one of the other side effects of methane and hydrogen sulfide, other than it's flammable and it will paralyze your lungs and you can't breathe and you suffocate, that it could kill you, is it's very corrosive. You see the back of the building, the rust in the metal, the rust in the trim. The side of this building used to be metal. It's now wood because the methane rusted the metal out. That was the radiator that kept the engine cool. So we're using the heat that comes off of that to heat the manure, but like in the summertime, we have lots of extra heat because it doesn't take as much heat to heat up the manure.
So what are you using now?
Radiator down there. Went to a bigger, more efficient radiator. It's also aluminum and not steel, so it doesn't rust. Things that you learn over years and years of having the equipment. So the digester, the bugs, the bacteria that is in the manure comes from the cow. Okay? And a cow likes to be bored. It wants to be bored. It wants to eat the same feed, the same way, the same time, every day. That makes a cow happy. Bore the living daylights out of me, but they don't like change. They don't like change at all. So we try to keep the cows as happy as possible because they make as much milk as possible. We have to keep the bacteria in the digester as happy as possible because they make as much bacteria or as much methane. So you have the living organism of the digester that is much like a cow, but then you have all the mechanics and electronics that are in that building. So you have the mechanical aspect of a natural gas engine, which has to have the oil change, has to have air filters put in it. It has spark plugs. It has things that break, things that wear out. In that particular engine, the only thing that is original in it is the oil pan, the block, and the crankshaft. Everything else has been replaced multiple times with that many hours. Then you have all of the electrical components and the safety mechanisms that are in place. We are connected directly to the utility with that generator. So the electricity that it makes can go right back out into the electrical grid. It can go to anybody's house around here. We can power their house. They may use our electricity that was made here. So what happens when you have a thunderstorm, tree limb falls on the power line, knocks it down? Or somebody crashes, hits the utility pole, knocks it over, and the power line goes down. The power goes out. Well, we're still making electricity. So there is multiple layers of safety equipment that prevents us from electrifying the utility lines when the electric actually goes out because of a thunderstorm or some failure. Because our electricity that we make here could damage somebody's property. Worse yet, the lineman from the utility that comes to fix the original problem could be killed. So there's actually not a safety mechanism and a backup. There's a safety mechanism, a backup, and then a backup to the backup. And those things go bad from time to time too. So you have all the electronic and mechanical things that has to be maintained and replaced over time. It also happens to be where lots of people like to store things on the farm because it's always warm and it's always dry in there. So anything that somebody doesn't want to get wet or can't get cold shows up in that building. So there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't have anything to do with making electricity, but it just happens to be where it gets stored.
Sounds like a tip.
Well, to design them, you'd want to be an engineer. To work on them, you need some kind of trade, technical school, or you got to have a really big interest in things that are mechanical. Now, I'll be a spoiler. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I work on a farm. Out of college, I wore a shirt and tie. I sat in an office, worked my 8 hours, made lots of money. It was great for about 4 years, and I got tired of sitting in an office. I grew up on a farm. I didn't grow up on this farm, but I grew up on a farm and said enough is enough. The shirt and tie? No, I'm not a shirt and tie. In fact, I might at this point own one tie. Okay, I'm not a shirt and tie guy. The money was nice. Yeah, money was nice. I left that and came here. I've been here for 25 years. I've worked on this farm, well, not quite, but almost 25 years I've worked here. And I take care of a lot of people management, crop planning. I do a little bit of mechanical maintenance work on some of the farm equipment, but I take care of everything back here. This is my first stop every morning when I come to work, is driving through here. There's some things that need greased. There's some daily maintenance that needs done. But the big thing is just to make sure everything is working the way it's supposed to. Yeah, do you have to have an engineering degree to run this? No, you have to have an understanding of mechanical equipment. I mean, when the engine breaks down and say we need to replace a head or rebuild a cylinder, we still call the service company that we work with. They come, they do it. Can we do it? Can I do it? Yeah, I've done it enough times. I've helped do it enough times. I can do it in my sleep. But they come with their service van that has every tool that you need, every part that you need right there. We'd have to go to the shop probably 25 times, bringing all the tools up here we'd need. So, yeah. So I help. Usually what we do, if we have a problem here, we get it torn apart until they get here, and then they put it back together. Because the company that we work with on this, that help install it and maintain the generator and all the electrical safety equipment, is in Lancaster County. They're about 3 hours away. So in the time it takes them to get here, we can usually have the engine torn apart, ready to start fixing what broke and put it back together. So that saves us a little bit of a repair bill by us getting it torn apart. But so when I tell you that I have an engineering degree, that doesn't mean you have to have an engineering degree to do this. I just was an engineer because I liked mechanical stuff when I was a kid. I liked tearing apart all my toys and trying to put them back together, tearing apart stuff on the farm that I grew up and having my dad get mad at me because I couldn't remember how to put it back together. You know, those things that you do when you're a kid. And went to school, got an ag engineering degree from the University of Delaware, took both exams that you have to take to become a licensed engineer. Because you can be an engineer and you can be a licensed engineer. There is a difference. You can be an engineer and you can design things and build stuff, but you have to be supervised by a licensed engineer. So I went through all the steps. I do actually have a consulting business that I have outside of working at the farm, because 80 hours a week at the farm isn't enough. I work for myself also. But then I handle all of our DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, and Conservation District inspections, all the reports that we have to send in, all of the paperwork side, the environmental paperwork side of having a dairy farm. Which, if you don't know what that means, just ask Anna and she can tell you the piles of ring binders that I keep of records. So you guys have been through the parlor, right? Okay, so what they say anything in the parlor about milk quality? Did they talk about milk quality at all? Because this has always been part of my spiel back here. You know, you think manure solids. Cows sleep on manure solids. They lay in the manure solids. How can that be good for the cow? Well, it is. Anybody know what somatic cell count is? You ever heard that term? I know you probably do. Huh? I've never heard the first. Somatic cell count? Okay, it's the count of the white blood cells in the milk. A simple way of putting it is It's related to milk quality. Okay, so the lower your somatic cell count is, generally the higher quality your milk is. We ship our milk to Land O'Lakes. We get paid bonuses, a premium for higher quality milk. So the lower our somatic cell count is, the lower our bacteria count is in our milk, the higher the quality, the more money we get paid. So what's a okay somatic cell count? Oh, come on, you had every answer up till now. So we'll say what's bad, okay? The maximum, I believe, is 750,000. But milk companies will reject your milk as low as 400,000. In other words, you send them a truckload of milk, and if the somatic cell count in it is higher than 400,000, they can tell the driver to turn around, take it back to the farm, and dump it. Lost money, gone, down the drain, literally down the drain, because that's what they do. They dump it in the manure pit. So our somatic cell count here typically runs as low as 70, generally 110, 120,000. So we are getting as many premiums from Land O'Lakes as possible. And part of that has to do with our bedding, because that's where cows spend a lot of time. So we try to use dry manure solids and keep the beds well groomed, full of manure solids as much as possible. There's a lot of other factors that play into somatic cell count and milk quality, not just the bedding, but that's one of the things that can affect your milk quality. So we may make electricity here, but that electricity only accounts for about 1% of the farm's income. About 98% of the farm's income comes from milk. So the more volume of high quality milk we can ship every day, the better chance we have of making a profit and staying in business.
My name is Tracy. I'm one of the owners here, and I take care of calves and whatever else he's done. You know, that's how farms are. So most of you been on a farm? Or like work on? Okay. So this is the calf barn area. We originally just had that barn over there in Hutches, and then as we got bigger, we had to build these two barns, and we built these a couple years ago. And it's around 280 total. The back barn holds like 72 calves, and the front barns hold 78. Oh, here comes somebody else. So yeah, it's about 280 total. So whenever they're born out back, I'm not sure, you guys at the digester or where? Okay. So out back's where they're born, and then that's when they're given their, well, they get iodine, like their navel gets iodine, they get colostrum. Here's the tuber. We actually tube their colostrum. They get 2 tubers, which is a gallon the first feeding. You know, the mother's first milk, the colostrum. And then their second feeding, they get 1 tuber. And they get their different vaccines and stuff they need. And then they're brought over here, like in a little van or like whatever's back there to bring them over. And then it just depends on what barn we're filling. Like we just finished filling this back barn, so now we'll go to the front row hutches. So it just depends on like what barn we're filling, and they'll stay in there the whole time. Like they don't move from like, you know, barn to hutches and stuff like that. So we feed 3 quarts of its milk replacer mixed with water, 3 quarts twice a day. And the milk replacer is like a 24 protein and a 20 fat. And then our pellets we feed are like a 21, 22%, like the grain. I can give you the milk replacer over here. If you want to pass this around and smell it, that's the milk replacer. So, and then these are the pellets we feed. So whenever they're given the milk replacer, like I said, we mix it. We have like a mixing chart. So consistency is like really important with the amount of, you know, the milk replacer with the water. And we also have a thermometer that we can check the temperature, because just like cows, like consistent like feed and everything, calves are the same way, because if you don't, like they could get like upset stomachs and like different things. And then these are the pellets. They're like a pellet instead of like, some people feed like texture, but we feed like pellets. Okay, there's a wait, thanks. When they're brought over here, we also train them out of a bucket. We don't really use bottles. Some farms use bottles, but we train them out of buckets. You just like kind of keep your fingers in and like teach them how to drink. Some of them are smarter than others, but they catch on. So yeah, like I said, they get fed twice a day, 3 quarts twice a day, and that milk shuttle, I'll show you how it works. It feeds like 120 some calves, and it's in liters, so it's 350 liters. It's actually made in Germany, so everything's like liters. It's like 90 some gallons is what it is. So it's set at 3 quarts right now, so I can show you how it squirts out. I just have water in it right now. But it's set at 3 quarts, so you just go along and squirt it out. So that's the one calf, then you go to the next calf and push it. So that's like 3 quarts coming out. But yeah, right now it's just water. Yeah. Well, we have to like calibrate it once in a while just to make sure everything's like okay, like calibrate it and stuff, make sure it's the 3 quarts. So yeah, they get that twice a day, and in between they get water and then the pellets they get. And then when they're like 2 months old, they're weaned, and then they just get like the water and the pellets, and until they're like moved to the next barn. Whenever they're weaned, we can take the weight dividers out of these barns, out of the pens, and then they can be together. Like there'll be like 3 in a pen. Then they can get used to being in like a little group before they're moved to like a big group. It's really funny at first because they are so used to being in their own stall, and then when you put them together, it's funny because they like run around and it's funny. And then they sometimes they start to cough, and because they just run around and get so wound up, they start like coughing and stuff. It's funny. And then after that, they're moved to the barn where you just walk by, and they still remain on grain, and then they start getting some hay, and then they start getting some TMR, the total mixed ration, the feed, and then we still, give them grain over there on top. But we usually use sawdust for bedding, and we use straw. We use straw too, but in the winter we use more straw because it's colder. I don't know if I talked about the bulls. We actually keep some bulls. My dad's a vet, so we do some flushing and like flushing cows and IVF stuff. And if they're out of like a good cow and a good bull, that we'll keep, like if the genetics are good, then sometimes we keep the bulls and raise them. And then sometimes like either farmers will buy them for like breeding, or like someone like Select Sires or something like for stud service, like they'll buy them sometimes. But I'm trying to think what else.
So you only keep the female calves?
Yeah. And then our back row hutches right now is bulls. They have orange tags. We have a good many right now. We don't usually have that many. We have a good many right now. So we have had some like windy times, and those hutches like can scatter once in a while, but it's usually pretty good. Sometimes if we know something's coming, we'll have like some trucks lined up for help. Some people put like a cable. We never did, but these barns in the winter, if we're getting like a storm, there's like curtains, there's back curtains, and there's front curtains that come down. And that helps with, if it's like windy or snowy or whatever, or sometimes rain, depends on which way the rain comes. We don't usually have much of a problem, but once in a while it'll like blow in some. But the back curtain, the totally closes, and the front curtain, there's like rods you put in, and the curtain goes the whole way down in front, and then it really helps with if we're getting some storm or whatever. So I think I showed you that. Anyone have any questions yet about anything? We used to, before we had that milk shuttle, we used to use a wagon with 6 gallon buckets.
What is this?
So once the calves are brought over, like I said, they stay in the same area. Like some people think we moved from place to place, but they stay in the same area. Just depends on where we're filling. But calves do really good in hutches and these barns. The hutches get like pretty hot in the summer, so sometimes we have put like either a cement block or like wood on the back just for some airflow. But then sometimes the calves get older and bigger, and they get a little wild and can like move a hutch. So yeah, underneath like to lift the hutch up some just for some air movement. But that barn, the barn over there, I mean it's okay, but we probably won't use it as much once we build. I think I said, did I say this one's gonna be 105 or so? We won't use that barn over there as much then, just like some. But we have, it's, I don't know, it has some fans and stuff like that in it. But is there anything else you guys want to know about calves or anything? I mean, and then we also have a Kubota that we have a water tank on, and then that's how we feed the hutches. We used to have like a big long hose, but now we have a tank, and then we just go along the hutches, and there's a hose hooked to it and like a little pump, and then we give them water. Sometimes in the winter when it's like freezing cold, we don't give them water. Well, if we give it, sometimes we dump it right away because it just freezes. Especially at night, we really watch the weather a lot, temperature, all that kind of stuff. And then if it's going to rain, you can close the doors and the hutches. That helps, like so it doesn't get in on the grain and make stuff like wet and stuff.
How long does it take you to feed all the babies?
It usually takes like, I mean, it can be different. Depends on, if there's a lot of new ones to help drink, stuff like that. It's usually about, like in the morning, I start around 6, and usually like, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours. Just depends on what else going on. And then in the afternoon, again, it's around 3 we feed them, and it's about the same thing, same time. But there's always stuff in between. Like another thing we do is the calves, instead of like using dehorners, we clip the hair, and then we put like a paste on. Yeah, and then we give them like little meloxicam pills so it doesn't hurt. But yeah, that's not burnt your skin if you get it on your skin.
Can you explain why it's important to not have horns?
Horns. Well, I mean, first of all, sometimes they can get stuck in stuff, like, I mean, headlocks or something, or they could like maybe do that to each other. Like, if cows are messing with each other, they could like hurt each other, or people like come after a person, like hurt people and stuff. And but sometimes like the way the headlocks are, like if they have big horns, they can't like fit in right and stuff. So yeah, we do that like right away when they're brought over. You clip the hair and then put the dehorning paste on. I mean, some people use like dehorners, but we use paste now. Anyone have any questions about anything, or?
How much grain do they eat in a day?
I mean, the younger ones can just be like a little bit. I mean, some of the older ones, I mean, they can eat like probably several pounds. I mean, some of them eat a lot. And then we also did a thing one time where we weighed groups of calves just to see what their gain was. And you want like around 2 pounds, like that. But I mean, we've had some 1.8, 1.9 too. I mean, we're, just so you see kind of like where you're at. We've done that before with calves. Either use like a scales or like one of like the tapes that you like put around them, get like an average, for, because you want about 2 pounds a day. But
What are signs on a calf that you look for if they're sick?
like droopy ears, sometimes that you can tell like around their eyes they're not quite right. I mean, sometimes their noses are running, breathing heavy, just like slow, stuff like that. But yeah, their eyes, their ears, eyes, there's stuff like that's like real indicators you can really like tell. And then, well, if they don't drink their milk either, then that's usually something that's like, okay, there's something's going on. But I mean, we don't take temperatures a whole lot, but we sometimes we take their temperature and check. But well, as I say, another thing, whenever you're doing a milk replacer, I don't know if I said that, we have like a scales. I mean, the milk replacer bags, there's 50 pounds, they're 50-pound bags. And then we have a scales, like if you have to add more, so we have a scales to weigh it out, so it's like consistent. And then we also have a thermometer to check like the temperature and everything. So, I mean, if you go straight through one of these barns feeding, I mean, it can be like 15, 20 minutes. It doesn't take real long unless you have to help with new ones and stuff like that. But it goes pretty quick if you're going through just feeding the calves. If they already know how to drink and all that, it's it can go pretty quick. But then, I mean, we have to mix a couple batches and then get down through hutches and in that barn too. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And then I think I said before, it's a 24/20, 24 protein, 20 fat. And then our pellets are like a 21, 22%. But yeah, it needs to be a certain temperature. It says right on the tag. I have it marked on a thermometer, like where it has to be, like the temperature. So, but yeah, consistency is really important with caffeine and everything. But I mean, another thing, like if we have twins born, we really usually don't keep the twins because usually they're like smaller. They never really catch up. We actually did the other week because they were pretty good size, so we kept them. But if it's a bull and a heifer, we don't because the heifer's a free martin and she usually doesn't breed right, so we don't keep them. But the bulls that we keep come over here. The bulls that we don't keep go to the sale barn. Like Monday, the sale barn or livestock auction in Martinsburg is where they go Monday nights. I mean, so yes, some we don't keep, some we do, but they're kept out back. They get like a different type of when they get colostrum, but they get a different type of like milk replacer and stuff. So, but yeah, that bottle is actually a 3-quart bottle. It's pretty big. Sometimes I joke around and say, "Do you think a little kid could drink it? You know, like a baby?" Oh my word, that's a big bottle. So,
How old
yes.
are they until they move on to the next?
Well, like they get weaned at 2 months. They're on milk from when they're like after their colostrum cleared to like 2 months old and then they're weaned. And then I mean it can be rated 2 months or moved because it depends on what space we have. Like sometimes we're rushed for space, they have to get moved like right away. Other times they can be here for maybe 2.5 months. It just depends on where we are for space. But another thing with like cleaning these out, it's really easy. Once you take the panels out and they're together in a group, like the front, I mean, you probably see like the front like swings open, and then you just go with the skid loader, clean all the crap and straw, bedding, all that kind of stuff, and then we clean them. The white dividers get like power washed, and we put like lime and stuff like that, and then we like them to sit a little bit, but sometimes we don't have that because there's so many. like not too long ago there was like somebody born on one day. It was like 12 I think on a Friday, like 15 on a Saturday. It was a little crazy but I mean that's not normal. I mean it goes in spurts. So sometimes we have a lot born and sometimes it's just a couple a day. It's always different. You just never know like how many will be born. I mean some of these are made where the curtain just comes from the up there down to the stall. We like the ones that do this. And then the back curtain shuts. Oh, the names on it. Okay, the big number is their number, and then the mom and the dam, which is the mother, and then the sire, which is the bull, is on there, and then the date when they're born. I mean, I don't think it's a full date. It's just a month in the year.
That one says like Cypress. Is that like its mom?
Yeah. Well, let me see closer.
How are they laid out again?
Look here, buddy. Hey. Look here. The 17429 is the mother, and then this Cypress, that's the father. That's the sire.
Okay. So the mom is a number and the dad has the name.
Yeah. And then when they're born, they get the button tags put in, like the little round button tags, for identification, and everything's written down and then put in the computer. And then when they get a little older, they get the big tags.
It's like she understands. She's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.